Hi, this is Angela Coulter, and I am here with a Living the Shift webcast. I haven't done this in a really long time because I haven't done the webcasts in a really long time because I've been doing my online radio show on Blog Talk Radio, and I am still doing that, but it is going to every other week instead of every week. And I will be doing webcasts now, back to webcasts every other week instead of the show. So it'll be the show, webcast kind of thing. So you can find my show at blogtalkradio.com/livingtheshift. And you can find these webcasts on my YouTube channel, Living the Shift, as well. So what we are going to talk about today is something that comes up more and more. And you know, it's funny because as all of this progresses and as we go more into the whole spiritual, the more remembered and evolved way of existing, what's happening is there are all of these lines that have gotten blurred, and they continue to get blurred, and they're going to continue to get blurred, to my understanding, in terms of, you know, how everything is interrelated. So what happens often is we'll go to one extreme in an effort to sort of stomp out the other, which is truly a lesson and a practice and a habit in duality. So it's time to step away from that, because what we tend to do is all we're doing is we're perpetuating duality by saying, okay, you can't do this, you have to do this. Anytime. So this goes into, like, I had done a show on letting go of the spiritual ego on Blog Talk Radio. And it's really big because it's not just the spiritual ego, it's the ego. It's letting go of the duality, really, this or that. Things have to be this or that. And I'm talking about even in the spiritual world. So, for example, one of the things that has come up a lot lately with my clients, with friends, with students of mine, with family and others that I know is that we can actually do the best of all worlds. That's why we're here. We're here to be the best of all we can be. We are here to be stepping into our divine ability, divine power, divine remembrance. And there's so much to talk about with that. But before we can get there, which is going really fast, it's time for us to let go of this whole duality, this whole this or that. I have to be this or that. I can be this, but not that. So one of the things that's coming up and is becoming more and more prevalent is, like, what's science, what's medicine, what is, you know, and what is reality? Because we tend to, in the terms of duality, we think it has to be this or that. Well, what's going on is we have things like quantum physics, right, that are melding together science and spirit. And we have so much that's going on, and so that bleeds into medical practices and all kinds of practices and how we exist. And there are so many debates that are going on day after day, and I see this on Facebook, I see this all over social media, I have this in conversations, that, oh, well, this isn't empirical, you can't have this isn't, this isn't how it's written. And and my answer is, well, number one, whose empirical data are you using? Because take it from somebody who was in professional marketing for 20 years. Those who want to make numbers look good will make them look good. And it doesn't matter what side of the fence they're on, because that's part of the whole ego thing is, I'm going to skew. This is psychology. I'm going to skew the numbers, and that's going to make people believe it. This goes on in our science, what we call science. This goes on in our scientific world all the time. It's been going on forever. And so what happens is then misrepresentations happen. They become common belief. And once they become common belief, everybody says, well, everybody knows that that's, science. Everybody knows that that's medicine. When in fact, all of the assumptions and the beliefs that are being made is something that somebody else told them. Actually, not even what somebody else told them, but what somebody else told somebody else told somebody else, somebody who told somebody else who told them. And you know what a game of telephone is like, right? I've seen a lot of reports lately about looking at truly what we call science and scientific data, and how we do skew. Even scientists skew the numbers or look at the numbers in a skewed way, have beliefs within them in the scientific community that allows them then to believe things in a skewed way. So that's really not so empirical. That's not really so like tried and true. And here's the thing too. How many times in history, a bazillion, have we had a certain scientific fact that we totally live by, and then it was completely changed because of our evolution of understanding and how things have changed? So, it's really funny because I always see this whole, I see this snarky stuff about pseudoscience and all that kind of stuff. How about if we stop trying to categorize, right? Because that's duality. This is this or not that. If we stopped trying to categorize and just looked at something for what it was and started to consider, what is it that this is here being shown to me for, and what is it I can take from this that serves me in the highest and best way, instead of, well, let me know what's going to serve everybody or what's going to serve everyone. The whole science world or the whole medicine world. This goes also in the way of spirituality too, holistics and everything else. And I will have to say, as much as I am a firm believer and a firm participant in all of that, I see so many who practice who say the same kind of things on the spiritual side and on the holistic side. Well, I'm not going to get into the details of, FDA stuff versus stuff overseas, because it's really funny how, and there's so much politics, and this is such duality and such separation of, okay, this is a field that's supposed to be helping us. There's supposed to be tools to help us get better, and instead it has become a field, the pharmaceutical field has largely become a field in making money. And I'm not... You're talking to somebody who worked in the drug development field before I left corporate and did all of this stuff. It is about, it's become less and less about people. There are some who still truly believe that it is for people, and that's great. But all of this stuff, as it becomes more commercialized, and here's the thing, there's the fight from politics. How much money can we get from a patent? Versus, oh, we can never patent this, so let's play it down and its effectiveness. And I'm talking about herbs and stuff like that. So yeah, that stuff all happens. Absolutely. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it. Because of my background, and I know about skewing numbers. I know about how to present things different ways. I actually, which I've let go of, like having to skew. I just simply tell people, this is my understanding. You can take it or leave it. This is how I see it and know it. And how I see it as truth to me, and you can consider it, and you can leave it, or you can accept it. That's your choice. Because that's really what all of this is. Our own realities are our own realities no matter what. And so what we develop into from this discussion is not just all that consideration. The next part is, when we go in holistic, and then we go into, we go spiritual and whatever. And yes, I honestly 100% believe and know that everything that we create in our physical comes from the non-physical, comes from resistance, comes from the effects of living in duality and all that kind of stuff. So we can release everything from the non-physical. But we don't need one lick of anything to help us heal. And so many go back to, however, right? So then they start looking, well, blah, 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 and that's just crazy. And okay, number one, there's all of this stuff in the field of spiritual medicine. I guess you call it spiritual medicine, spiritual healing, right? Energy healing, alternative healing, integrative healing, all that kind of stuff. There's so much out there, and the legal system tries to get in and say, well, God, you can't say anything about healing. You can't say anything about whether it heals. In reality, I'm going to say a truth that I understand, and that is that nothing heals us but ourselves. Everything that we utilize to help us heal ourselves is a tool. Everything. I'm not talking just about Reiki or Trinity or any kind of energy work. I'm not talking about crystals. I'm not just talking about all that. I'm talking about medicines. I'm talking about pharmaceuticals. Doctors do not heal people. We heal ourselves. If we didn't, there wouldn't be situations galore where you have two people who have the exact same thing, the exact same situation, the exact same build kind of thing, makeup, all kind of stuff. And one will take medicine and heal, and the other one will take the same medicine and will not. And you can talk about genetics and everything else. There are situations where they can't figure it out. So what I've been seeing more and more is been very fascinating. About 2 years ago, I had gotten the message very clearly that medicines were going to stop working. And the reason they were going to stop working was because we have started using them as a crutch. And when I teach energy work, when I teach Trinity Energy Progression and going into divine consciousness, my understanding of what I teach is that what we utilize in the physical in any way. So if somebody decides they want to use pharmaceuticals, if somebody wants to use, physical fitness, somebody wants to use diet, if somebody wants to use crystals or they want to use sound healing, those are simply tools. They're all tools that we have created in this level of consciousness to get to help us remember the state of well-being, of optimal well-being. When we remember how to do that, maintain that, and release it without having to use tools, and it is releasing all this stuff about having to use tools to be able to be in our best state. As we progress, as we clear more things, as we clear more beliefs, as we progress in our understandings, we need to use the tools less and less. And I'm talking about everything. Allergies and chronic conditions and, environmental stuff like people in here. So it goes from everything down to the smallest medical thing all the way up to big major things about your whole life and how it runs. This is all integration. There is no this or that anymore. And so that's why, what's really interesting is that we tend to go bipolar with all this, and people just jump right into, when you go into the spiritual world, we jump all the way into this whole, no, you can't use anything pharmaceutical. Like, don't use anything over the counter. Don't use anything, that you get a prescription for. Don't go to a regular doctor. I've heard this so much, and then there's judgment that happens when somebody needs to go on pharmaceuticals because of something that's going on. When someone comes to see me and they tell me this, I always ask them, number one, there are things about dealing with pharmaceuticals that have a consciousness, like herbs do. Everything has a consciousness in some way, and the lab-created ones can be a little harsher. So we can actually shift things so that you have an easier time of using them, and to find a way to be able to, eventually release the need for them. Yes. I don't profess I never, ever once profess to heal anybody. I always tell them when they come into my office, you are healing yourself. I'm just helping you look at different ways and access different frequencies, access different things, give different considerations to how to heal yourself, how you can heal yourself, and that you can, and to help empower you to do so. That's what everybody who helps anyone with their health should say. Doctors don't make people well. People make people well. So it's all part of that practice of disempowerment that we've given ourselves in terms of the duality, this whole lesson of duality. And when we say, you know what, I'm the one who's in charge of my own health, I'm the one who's in charge of my well-being. Guess what that comes down to? It comes down to what I say over and over and over again, which is get in tune with your higher self. Get in tune with your intuition and what your body needs. Get in tune to you again, and remember that you are the one that has all the answers. You have all the answers. Everything is created in your reality for the lessons you're supposed to learn, and when you learn the lessons, it goes away. When you release the need to learn them a certain way, they go away in that way. So there are so many discussions we could have about medicine, about medical stuff, about physical issues, but I will say there is not a this or that. It is time for us to integrate the best of all worlds. I have seen more and more situations. I have several people I have a couple of people right now who I'm working with on a group level, having all of the practitioners that I work with in Trinity Energy Progression, which is what I teach and what I have been blessed with, a gift and understanding, going into divine consciousness. And releasing resistance and partitions and all that stuff that cause all of this, whatever, resistance in our lives. So I've been presented recently with a couple of people who have gone through several years, and I'm not just talking about a couple things, several years of trying everything. And I'm talking about medicine, different kinds of, medical specialists, all kinds of integrative, holistic, and energy work stuff, everything, and yet they've still declined. And they still continue to decline. And so I'm not saying that one thing worked over another. Nothing works. So, and everybody, all these tests, all of these things, and everything was still like failing. And so then we do this group thing to sort of give them a big boost of what? Of universal love, of unconditional love. I mean, essentially that's what it boils down to. That's what the divine is. So when we do that, it boosts their remembrance of, oh, I'm worthy of this. I'm worthy of healing myself. And it's amazing how quickly things start to turn around for them. With nothing else changed in the equation. And so the power of that is immense. The power of that is incredible, because it's all a part of us binding back together, or not binding back together, or actually releasing the partitions that we believe keep us apart. And remember that we're all one, and remember that really that whole vibration is the higher the vibration, the more healing it naturally is. We can't, and that's part of how sound healing works. I mean, that's part of physics. So you want to integrate. This is the time for us to integrate the spiritual. Actually, here's the thing. The spiritual is the way it is. We are the divine. Everything, my understanding is that everything in this reality has been created in an illusion for the experience of duality. And so when we step out of that illusion and we say, you know what, it's all just love, and that's the only true power there is. So yeah, you want to call it prayer, call it prayer. You want to call it energy work and learning how to manipulate and use that to help us in the higher vibration, in the highest way. Absolutely. Then it's simply being able, and it's not manipulating, it's just focusing our energies, focusing our attentions in the creation of what reality that we intend. So in helping each other, yeah, there's going to be, and I understand there's going to be more and more situations where that starts to happen, where somebody tries one thing or one particular area, goes down the arena of allopathic medicine, and that fails. Then they go down alternative, and that fails, because they're all still trying to do this by themselves. And then it's also the remembrance of our collective and our connectedness. Wow. Or you try to do the medical by itself, or you try to do the spiritual by itself, and then, you're not getting results with one or the other. And then we have to connect them and integrate them, because we created all of these understandings are the same in power, are the same in their weight, if we use them in the highest and best way. So if we put out the intention of, give me the mix, the most amazing mix, the most beneficial mix for me to use to help myself get out of this situation, to release this from my reality. And then the next understanding is that it's not to put a Band-Aid on it anymore, because really that's what we've gotten into the habit of doing, which is part of why everything's falling apart, is we put Band-Aids upon Band-Aids upon Band-Aids. We talk about we work with symptoms instead of looking at the underlying cause, because one scientist says you have to do this and looks under the microscope, and the other one says you have to look at what's coming from in here in the mind and in the soul. And instead of saying it's one or the other, it's actually both. One is reflective of the other. So here's the thing: if we get these messages from our higher self, and we create sickness and disease and everything, an injury, so that we stop and look, because it's a red flag, a sign that we've been ignoring, or some lesson we wanted to learn. Okay, so let's alleviate this. So put the intention out there of, let me find what is going to be optimal, so that I can alleviate this, so that I can focus on the non-physical cause of it. So I won't be distracted by it, but I won't forget it. So that I can then heal this from the core, instead of just continue to put Band-Aids on it. There's a difference. There's a shift in the way we start to act with that. So things to consider. This is a lot to think about because it's a very different way of I mean, it's really funny because some of the most scientific people I know are some of the most spiritual, because it sort of goes so far left brain that it comes back around right brain, but it's all integrated. So instead of us saying I have to do this or that, it's a matter of how does it integrate in the highest and best way. We created this all for a purpose. How do we use it in a way that's going to benefit us? Not just collectively, because there's nothing that's going to work for everyone. There's no one formula that is going to work for everyone. It is what is going to work for me as an individual. And what goes down to the basics is clearing the chatter of the ego, clearing the chatter of the mind, and getting to the voice of the soul to know from the higher self what it is that's best for us to help us on our journey. And on that, I'm going to go. Have a great one. This is Angela with this week's Living the Shift.